Thank you, Sean, for telling me. So the no audio thing is still, so Jake, my mixer, apparently they told me it has been fixed and will be shipped back. I haven't seen a shipping notification. It's been a week. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it'll just show up one day. But anyway, yes, I keep forgetting I have to turn my manual audio on manually. That's what I have to do. Anyway, so we're here. We're here. Greetings. How y'all doing today? I was starting to say, hey, sorry about yesterday's delay to today because my kid was homesick, and so I had to do a little juggling with my wife and ended up just pushing the show. It made a lot more sense, but that's okay. You do have sound now. Yes, we have sound now. So, yeah, so that's what we're doing. We are sounding off today. That's odd. Okay, let me make sure we're totally ready. We are ready. This is going to be a good show. This is going to be a fun, kind of techie show. A bit of a visual manual, if you will, to this big old honking light right here. And that's okay. It's gonna be a good one. Ooh, a memory card. Oh, look, I broke a memory card. Oops. It's gonna maybe do a video on like pulling that apart, see what's inside of those things. I don't know. Should I do that? You guys interested in that sort of thing? Rip one apart. Have you ever ripped apart an SD card? It could be kind of cool to see what's inside. Like the actual memory is probably this thing the size of a grain of rice, and all the rest it just handles. It's probably basically all there's to it. Oh, look, the countdown's down. Okay, cool. Let's get this thing started, shall we? Alrighty. Let's do it. Greetings and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live, now twice a week show here at youtube.com/PhotoJoseph. YouTube, you know, PhotoJoseph. Hey, usually Monday, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, Thursdays, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Every once in a while, something changes, like today. Had to get pushed out today, but that's just the way it is. Today, we're going to be talking about this fancy Godox light here, the QT1200 2M. M is in, my God, this thing is big. This is a massive, massive studio light. And it's a beast. It's got a ton of really great features on it. It's got a huge amount of power, and we're just basically going to go through it, take a look at what makes it tick, show you what all the buttons do, and in a future show we'll be doing some actual photos with it so we can see what kind of light we're getting off of it. But this one, today's show, is all about the features, what it can do, what it's all about. So with that said, let's get this thing up here. Actually, before I put it up there, let me put this down here so I can show you some of the components. Let's get a top-down view here real quick, and make sure we're focused there. So just wanted to show you the way that it comes in a box. It's kind of interesting. This glass cover here is actually not attached when it arrives. I think you want to be real careful with this. This is the modeling lamp that is also not attached, just comes in a box. And it comes with this cover on it. And this cover can be used obviously at any point in the studio to protect it, whatever. But you'll notice, which is kind of odd, you get this glass cover and you very carefully slide, not like that, slide that into place. It is glass, don't break it. The modeling lamp protrudes past the front of it, which is a little bit weird, but it's okay. If you do put the protective case back on it, then that is protecting it, of course. So this case, incidentally, it's a Bowens mount, standard Bowens mount. It comes with a standard reflector as well with the same Bowens mount, so it makes it really easy to just put on whatever attachments you're going to put on. So let me go ahead and put this thing back onto the light stand here, making it a little easier to manage. If you're going to put a standard reflector on there, it just slides right on, snaps into place. It's super, super easy. I will say I'm used to ProPhoto gear. ProPhoto is what I have in my studio now. And it's old ProPhoto. I haven't bought any new ProPhoto in a decade. So things may have changed, but this mount is really nice and easy. If you've never worked with this type of a mount, the way it just snaps on and off there is quite good. And we're actually going to be setting up later on the massive parabolic softbox, and you'll see how this attaches to that as well. Same thing, but I'll show you a little tip with getting it in there. But that's basically the front of it. You've got your massive strobe ring in there you saw from overhead, the modeling light, a protector glass dome, and then the shield. There is also on here a hole for a umbrella. So if you want to do a shoot through or reflective umbrella, there is a hole right there to slide the post of that into. So with that said, let's turn this thing around to the back, plug it in, and see what it can do. We're going to go for a nice close-up view here. Power switch, of course, turn that thing on. We're going to go through most of these buttons here. Actually, we're going to go through all of them, tell you what they all do. We're actually going to start with this one here, the buzz button. When I turn that on, it is the beep that allows you to know that the flash has recycled. However, it is also the beep that beeps every time you rotate a knob or turn a button. So test fire, you know it beeps, tells you it's recycled, that's great, but also every knob so we're going to turn that off. I'm going to turn that off just because I think that's really kind of a bit much. Okay, so there's your buzz. Let's start over here with the mode for real here. So it has 3 different modes. You push these to cycle through them. You have your multi-strobe mode. Oh, sorry, that's the high-speed sync mode. You have your high-speed sync mode, which is, in theory, a really, really awesome thing, but it's not working. At least not properly. So it has 3 modes: high-speed sync, a multi-stroboscopic mode, and the standard manual mode. Let's start by talking a little bit about high-speed sync because it's not working properly. At least it's not working properly with my setup. So I am using the X Pro trigger to control this thing. This has radio control built in. Use the X Pro trigger and you can remotely trigger this from your camera, which is great because you can also control it. You can adjust the output from here. We'll talk a little bit about how that connection goes on. But you can do all of that from your camera, which I gotta say in itself is absolutely huge. I'm used to monoblocks where I literally have to climb up on a ladder to make power adjustments to my lights. The ability to do this from the camera itself is wonderful. I realize this isn't new tech, it's just new to me, and it makes me happy. But this does also have a high-speed sync mode. But again, it's not working. So here's what happens. First of all, there's two things to know. You can enable high-speed sync from this, but at this point, that's not working. Now, to be fair, I have reached out to Godox and explained what's happening, what isn't happening, asked some questions. They haven't gotten back to me. I didn't want to delay the show again, and so we're going for it. If they come back to me with good answers of how to work around these, how to fix these, which I seriously doubt they will, be able to say that because I think that there are some actual problems in here. Hopefully they will be able to issue a software update and we'll get these fixed. But the problems that we have, the first one that's an easy one, it doesn't really matter, is when you enable high-speed sync on the remote, it doesn't actually enable it on here. So you could be on your remote controlling it, thinking that you've gone into high speed and you haven't. You do have to actually go over here and hit the mode button and cycle into high-speed sync. Okay, no big deal. But once you're in high-speed sync mode, something's wrong. Let's take a look at the pictures here that I took yesterday. So on the first test, this looks fine. But then I kind of, I don't know where I saw it out of the corner of my eye, some slight banding. I thought, hold on a second. I started lowering the exposure. Now this is the same flash output, just getting darker and darker. And you can see that there is a real band happening in here. And then this is a different flash output. I think this is a higher power with a lower, well, stopping down the lens is how I was controlling the light input. And you can see that band down at the bottom there again as well. So this is one output level. I forget the level, doesn't really matter, but I tested one output level, we got the banding, tested another one, we're getting the banding in there. So there is something wrong with the high-speed sync. It is not perfectly in sync. Curiously, there's an ongoing conversation on my channel on the video that I did about these lights, these Godox lights, where someone was saying that they were not able to get high-speed sync to work with these. Off camera, there was some kind of a banding, very similar to this, although slightly different description. I tested that and that worked fine on my cameras. However, I'm seeing a variation of what they're talking about here. So there is a high-speed sync issue. Hopefully that will get resolved. Sorry to open with a bummer, but it's a major feature of here that isn't quite working right, but hopefully that'll get fixed. But with that said, let's move on to the next feature. Incidentally, when you're in high-speed sync mode, your lowest power setting is 1/16. If you go any lower, it goes to off, and so 1/16 to full power. You'll see when we go into manual control that we have a lot more control than that, a lot more options. Let's go to the multi-mode next. Multi-mode is so neat. So first of all, you have your power. So you can take the power all the way down to 1/28. So there's your lowest power, all the way up to full power, or actually up to 8th power. And then here you have two different numbers that tell you your hertz, your frequency, how many shots per second you're getting, and how many shots you're going to do total. To adjust that, you push on the set button, and then you start rotating. So I can say, say I want to do 10 in a second, so I'll bring that up to 10. And then I go over here, and I see how many bursts am I going to get. Now at this point, the maximum is 2 because my power is so high. So let's actually take this down a little bit. Let's take the power down, cycle through this. Let's take the power all the way down to the lowest setting. And now I can take this all the way up to 50 bursts. So that'd be 50 bursts at 10 bursts per second if I go at 128th power. And you might be thinking, okay, that's great, but then how do I how do I plan a shot? Because the kind of things where you use this is the the dancer in the air where you want to have a single exposure, pop, 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 multiple flashes as they fly through the air. You probably want to plan it. And that's why you want to be able to plan how many shots per second and then how many fires total you're going to get. So how do you plan knowing with what power and so on? There's a chart. There's actually a really handy dandy little chart that this comes with. And let's go to the right page here. Here we go. Maximum stroboscopic flashes. This is in the manual, of course. And so, for example, if you want 10 hertz, so 10 per second, and you want to fire off 20 frames, then you can go to 1/64th power. If you drop it down to 1/128th power, you can get 50 frames. So you just get a nice little chart here that tells you exactly how many frames you can fire off, which is pretty neat. So I'm looking forward to playing with this. I think this is a really cool, fun function that'll definitely have its entertainment properties. So we'll be playing with that. So that's how that works. The next mode is your full manual, your standard manual mode. So again, 1/128th is your lowest power. Incidentally, you keep seeing that off. That's because I rotate too far. It just turns it off all the way up to full power. Now there's a very interesting other number that is showing up on here, and that's this right here, the T to 0.1. So that's T for time at 0.1. I realize it looks like a letter O. It actually is a letter O. I don't know what they were thinking, but it's T 0.1. And this is the time that it takes for the strobe, for the light output, to get to 10% of its nominal output, of its maximum output. So this is a fraction. This is 1/180th of a second at full power. And you might be thinking, 180th of a second, hold on a second, that's really long. Right, like my camera flash syncs faster than that at 250th of a second, and that's true, it does. So 1/80th of a second, that's a really long time. Well, remember that 1/80th of a second is time to 10%. And this is a really, really interesting thing to point out that is very, very much a kudos to Godox. Most flash manufacturers list the time to 50%. It'll be a T equals 0.5 number. That is the time that it takes from basically off, from when the flash is off, to it fires and immediately spikes up. You get a really fast attack as it gets to its brightest point, and then the fall off of that is going to be a long curve. Most flash manufacturers list the time to 50% because it's a shorter time and so it sounds more impressive. But the thing is, if you think about it, when your light is outputting at 50% of whatever you've set it to, that's still a lot of light. That is enough of light to affect your exposure. Time to 10% though, 10% is barely any light at all. You could do time to 0%, but it would be a much longer tail, and that's kind of not really relevant. So the two standards are time to 50%, T equals 0.5, or time to 10%, T equals 0.1. In this case, Godox is doing 0.1. Now, at full power, it's 1/180. That's a fraction, so 1/180, 1/180th. If I take this thing down to its lowest power, lowest power, we get down to 1 over 3 with 1/3852th, 50 sec, 1 3. Anyway, you got the number. 1 over 3,850. It's a lot of numbers. That's fast. Now that at that light output with that short duration, we're talking about really freezing motion. So that's the water drops in the sky, that sort of thing. And I ran some very simple tests yesterday just to make sure that I was fully understanding the numbers here. Just put the camera in a dark room, put a 1 second long exposure, and fired the flash at full power, just shaking my hands like this to make sure we got motion. At full power, we definitely see motion blur. At the low power, it's completely frozen. So that it absolutely is what we're reading here. So that is a fraction 1 over that number on there. Now, that number, 3,852th of a second, is fast, but it can actually get a lot faster. This strobe has 2 different modes. It has a accurate mode, a color accurate mode, and a speed mode. It's in the color accurate mode by default, and when we get into the custom function settings, I'm going to show you how to switch into the speed mode, and we'll talk a little bit more there about what happens when you do that. But suffice it to say, even though that sounds really fast, it can get dramatically faster still. Okay, so those are the 3 modes. Your high-speed sync mode, which is not really exactly working right now, the multi-stroboscopic mode, and the standard manual mode. Next up, you have S1, S2. This is for optical slave. S1 is a first fire sync. S2 is a second fire sync. What that means is if you are using this in a totally manual type environment, you're going to have this triggered by optical slave, which means some other flash, any other flash fires, and that makes this fire. If it's an S1, it fires when the flash fires. If it's an S2, it fires after the second pop, because a lot of flashes that you might have on camera that you might be using to trigger this will pre-flash. They'll fire a flash to meter exposure if you have the camera set to TTL. They'll fire a flash to meter and then fire a second one to actually expose. When you put it in S2, it will ignore that first flash and fire on the second one. Kind of a cool feature. Then there's the buzz and the modeling light. So modeling light on off, I push that, it comes on. We now see a percentage on here. If I push it again, that starts flashing, and I can increase or decrease the percentage of that. So take it to 100% all the way down to 5%. If you want to turn it off, just press and hold for about 2 seconds, and that turns the modeling light off. You can incidentally control that from the remote here as well. That was another weird thing. I had to push the button to turn it on or off twice each time to get it to trigger, but it does control the modeling light. It will turn that on and off from the remote. Now there's another thing that we're going to see when we get into the custom function settings, where you can have it set so that the modeling light stays on all the time, even when the flash fires, which is the default, or you can have it set so that the modeling light turns off when the flash fires, which I actually prefer. I don't want any chance, especially if I'm doing kind of a lower light, longer exposure photo, for the modeling light to interfere with the exposure or to somehow color tint the picture. It's, it's definitely not a daylight balance bulb in there. I don't want that extra light. So I've programmed it to automatically turn off the modeling light when it takes the picture. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment here. All right, that's that, and then obviously the test button over here. Let's see here, just down at the bottom, power, hard sync, so if you want to go really old school, plug in the sync, and then, interesting, there's a USB port. It has a little Wi-Fi symbol on it, but that is kind of an old school way of doing wireless, because this does have wireless built in, but also I think that USB port can be used for software updates. All right, up to here. The very top one, multifunction button, this turns wireless on or off to start, so you see the wireless display has disappeared or come back on. It's also the custom function button. We'll come back to that. Down here, you have your group and channel settings. So now that I have wireless turned on, if I push this, it cycles through the different groups. Once it's flashing, I can actually use the dial as well. And so you have A through E and then 0 through 9 as well. So you have a lot of different settings in there. I use A, and that's your group. And then for channel, press and hold it for a couple seconds. Channel starts to flash, and then you can set your channel. So remember, the whole purpose of that is your group, the first one, the A through 9, is what this particular unit is assigned to. So when I'm controlling it from here or from another flash, whatever it is, when I go on here and I say take light A and set it to full power, that is this, now A. The number, the frequency of the channel rather, that is the channel that this is transmitting at, so all of my lights that I want to fire at once need to be on the same channel. They can all be in a different group, so I can control each group individually from here, but they all need to be on the same channel to be fired from here. So that's how that works. And that's that, except for the custom function. So press and hold for 2 seconds, it goes into custom function mode, and there's 4 different things to look at in here. We're going to come back to speed. We're going to finish that last. Function 2, this is kind of a weird thing that I honestly do not completely understand. It is a flash delay. The manual explains it as a rear curtain sync, second curtain sync, which makes perfect sense. If you're doing, let's say, a 1/30 of a second long exposure, do you want the flash to fire when the shutter opens? That's first curtain sync, or when the flash, let's try that again. If you're shooting a 1/30th of a second exposure, for example, and you want the flash to fire in the beginning when the shutter opens, that is first or front curtain sync. If you want it to fire just before the curtain closes, just before the shutter closes, that is rear or second curtain sync. So that's what that is, and that's what I believe this is for. But there's a time delay in here, which I completely do not understand. Again, I've asked the company, they haven't responded back to me yet. But if you look at this, I can set, it's a very small delay, but I can set a delay in here. I don't get it. So anyway, if anybody's watching this and actually knows what that's for, you want to educate me, please drop it into the comments. Otherwise, I will find out from the company eventually, and I will get back to you. Also, for those of you who are watching live, I see there are some chats going on in the comments here. If you know what that is, then by all means drop it into the live chat, and we'll address it after the show. Okay. Next up is the masking function, and this is another that says 2 settings, N1 and N2, and again, I have to admit, I just don't get it. I believe it has to do with the same thing as the S1, S2, where it ignores the first pop, but it doesn't need that on the wireless. It's already got it for the optical, so I just don't get it. The manual is total Chinese-English blend thing that's really hard to understand. Kind of a downside of the Godox equipment. The manuals are definitely not translated by a native English speaker, and so they're a little bit weird. I really don't quite understand what that is. But I'm just going to leave it to off because that's its default setting, and I'm not doing any second flash, double flash popping things anyway. So there's that. And then, let's go to the next one, F4. F4 is your modeling lamp on or off. So this is the one that allows you to disable the modeling lamp when the flash fires, or have it stay on all the time. Again, by default, it stays on all the time. I like the idea that it turns off, so I have set mine to off. Now let's go into the first function again, which is definitely the more exciting one. F1, speed mode. So F1 is to enable speed mode on or off. So here's the difference. The standard mode is not speed mode. Speed mode is the mode we can turn on. Standard mode would be a color accurate mode where you have a within 200 degrees Kelvin, according to the manual, of the entire power output from top to bottom. The speed mode, the color is not as accurate. There's quite a wide range of color and of color variance, and there's actually a chart. So again with the charts, there's actually a chart in here showing you the variance in color temperature. So you can see here in the stable color temperature mode, the standard mode, it goes from 5540 up to 5674. So very, very minimal change in there. Whereas in the high speed mode, the speed mode, it varies from 5500 degrees Kelvin up to 8400 degrees Kelvin. So that's a huge difference. And you might think, well, that's terrible to have that much light variance, color variance. Remember, you can white balance. You can do a custom white balance, so the fact that it's changing shouldn't matter. You just need to be aware of it. The advantage, though, is speed. So here, let's go back to the close-up here. I'm going to leave it off for a moment, back out of here, go to my lowest power possible. Let's get rid of the sync in there. Okay, lowest power possible, and that was, where were we? 1 over 3852. So remember, this is a fraction, 1 over 1/3852nd of a second duration. Now, go into the mode here, not the mode, sorry, go into custom function. Let's turn this F1 on. Let's go back to my standard mode here, and let's take my power down to its lowest setting. And now we can get a flash duration 1 over 14,814th of a second. That is massively, massively shorter duration. So this allows you to really, really freeze something. I mean, I will be doing some tests with this because I've never done photography of things like water splashes, certainly not bullets, not about to start doing that, but I've never done really, really high-speed flash photography. This is going to be fun to experiment with and see at what point those extreme high speeds become a benefit. But that is an incredibly short flash duration. So that's something you have in there. Again, the sacrifice, what you're giving up is color accuracy. It just jumps up to a much cooler temperature, but that's okay. Adjust the white balance and you're good to go. And that's everything on here. That is everything on this light that I want to tell you about. So the next part of this is to look at the parabolic softbox. That's the thing. Haha, let's try that again. The next part of this is to look at the parabolic softbox. Now I realize we haven't looked at prices yet on this whole thing, so let's take a quick look over here. The Godox light itself, this is the QT1200 2M. That's the 1200 watt second. This is the biggest one, comes in at $800, $799. If you look at the slightly smaller ones, there's a 400 watt second at $549 and a 600 watt second at $599. So something, well, half the price there almost, but 1200 watt second is your maximum at just about $800, which is frankly a really good price for a light this big. The parabolic softbox we're about to look at is a massive, massive beast. It's $89. Now, I don't know about you, I've bought a lot of modifiers in my time. That's cheap. That is an absolute bargain for a modifier. Now, I can't speak to the long-term quality. I've only had it for a little while. I can't speak to its light quality. Is there something weird in the silver that may be adding a color to it? Don't know yet, but that price is an absolute bargain. And I know that Godox is really striving to make very good equipment. High-speed sync thing notwithstanding, obviously got a problem there, but they do strive to make very, very good equipment. They really are making inroads. They're really kind of slapping around some of the big boys in the industry, and with prices like that on a massive softbox like this, that's pretty cool. There's one other piece to this puzzle that they've sent over here that I'll show you, and that is the grid for the softbox. So $40 for this huge grid to go inside the softbox, so that allows you to focus. Focus just allows you to make a more linear light with that. So with that said, let's go take a look at the softbox. Alrighty. This is the P120L. It comes in a nice handy dandy little container like this, although I don't imagine this is something you'll be taking on location too often. Let me just check something real quick. Did I still have sound? I do, okay. Haha. We're gonna super triple double check that because, yes, it's still on. Had to double check that one. Whew. I wasn't sure when I made that switch, so let's try this again. So I don't think it's something you're going to be taking with you on the road too often because the light to go with it is quite huge, but there you go. It's in a nice little portable bag. The Bowens mount adapter connector, I will show you how that all goes together and show you a little gotcha thing to watch out for on that. A couple diffusion panels, we'll take a look at those. And of course the softbox itself. Now, the only reason I'm actually bothering to do this, to set it up for you, is because I think it was actually pretty easy to set up. I've set up some pretty big softboxes before that were really, really hard to do, especially on your own. This one is not hard to do, and you'll see it only takes a few minutes. It does come with 2 extra fiberglass rods, so if you invariably, or when you invariably snap one of these, you got a couple of backups. And all you got to do, spread this thing out. Take your panel here, you can, your grip, what do you call this thing? Your mount, there's the right word. You'll see it has a series of holes in it. These go inside of each of the holes. The holes are numbered. Those are for different types of softboxes. You're gonna actually use every single one of the holes on here, so it doesn't matter where you start. The one thing I will tell you is when you first hook this thing up, make sure that the mounting part is up, not in. The first time I put it together, I put it in, and then I'm like, how does it attach to the, oh, right, had to take it apart, put it back. Just let my mistake be your not mistake. So with that said, we just start popping these in. And at first, it gets really easy in the beginning. You just start lining them up in here. Again, I want to make sure that we've got them not out of order. Out of order would be bad. Here we go. And in the beginning, it's really, really easy. But then as you get past about half of them, it starts to get a little bit harder. We start to have to bend things to get it into place. But that is why I'm doing this, so that you can see how it goes. I'm sorry I don't have a close-up camera on here, but you can see it. So once you get to a point where it starts to get a little bit stiffer, I think the easy thing to do is take the bottom of this, put it on the ground, and just kind of bend it a little bit. And you start bending the rods, and then you can kind of manipulate them into the holes a little bit more easily. And obviously just a bit of strength in there, just grab it and give it a good twist, and away you go. So looks like that one has come out of the bottom there. So these slide in through little channels throughout the softbox. They need to slide into a pocket. They do occasionally pop out, so slide that back into the pocket there. And continue. There we go. That's it. Look at that thing. It is a thing of absolute beauty, this parabolic softbox. Now we have a little skirt to cover up the gap on the back, so this skirt just wraps around there. The Velcro's in place everywhere so that you don't have any light leaking. And then on the inside, you can put diffusion panels. There's actually two. There is a smaller one that goes inside of it. So you'd go, there's Velcro tabs in here. This would go in the middle in there. And then that's kind of a secondary level of diffusion. You could put that in addition to this one that goes over the front, or I think I got those backwards, but you get the idea. One of them goes on the inside, one of them goes over the whole front out here. And then there's the grid, which is an add-on extra. And there's the grid. So the grid would allow you to attach this in here. And the grid could be used with or without the diffusion panel. That's up to you. But this will allow you to focus that light. So as you can see here, it's just very quickly attaching to the Velcro. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that you can really see the effect of it like so. So allowing you to really focus that light in place. And that's it. So that is all there is to it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. You've got your Godox QT1200 2M and the big old P120, P120L. Isn't that a Tesla? P120D, I think. Anyway, it's a big, huge softbox. I'm super excited about playing with it. I've never had a parabolic softbox that size before. It's going to be a lot of fun to play with. So that'll be the next stage of this series, of this video. I'll be doing that in the near future. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell and all that good stuff so you know when that video goes live. And for those watching live, speaking of, we are about to jump into the Q&A portion of the show. If you're not watching live, just wait for it to pop up right over my face here, and you'll be able to click on that and watch the Q&A. See you in a minute. I remember to turn my sound back on that time. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment in the Q&A portion of the show. We've just been talking about this Godox QT1200 2M and the P120, I want to call it P120D, P120L big softbox. Let's see what's going on in the live chat over here. All right. Shark, howdy, everybody, and howdy, you too. Well, howdy to you too, Shark. Shark, ouch, the Godox strobe light ain't cheap at $800. It is not cheap at $800, but that is very affordable for the amount of light you're getting out of it, which I see the Technopilot says right afterwards. Is that expensive when you consider, it's that expensive when you consider it's a 1200 watt second. It's a good price, but I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but that is a good price for what it is. Anyali, someone from Guatemala. Hello, hello. Technopilot, I believe F2 is for it to allow you to create a hypersync style ability instead of high-speed sync. I don't think so. We're talking about the custom functions. Let me just read you what the manual says. And maybe you can translate this for me. Oh, that's the delay one. F2 is the delay one. I was thinking F3 was the mask one. The delay flash, so trigger is, so this is what it says. It says function delay flash. Settings off or 0.01 to 30 seconds. It goes up to a 30-second delay. Okay. Settings and description, trigger as second curtain. So it's almost like you would have to manually program in the second curtain sync. I'm going to do a 1/30th of a second shutter speed, therefore I have to dial in 1/30th of a second. That kind of sucks, because what if you miss it by a fraction? If you're not exactly dead on, then your motion, your freeze is going to happen right before the end, or if it's too long, then you don't get the freeze at all. If that's the way it works, that's really weird. I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to say, I want my flash to fire half of a second into a 1 second long exposure, right? So you could get, let's do the jumper, right? You got someone, a ballerina, jumping through the air, and you got enough ambient light that without the strobe, you're going to see a blur of them moving. So you've got to jump, ooh, jump, 1 second. Have it fire halfway through, pop in the middle, and then land, so you get this smear and a freeze and then a smear. That could be kind of cool. I could definitely see doing that. But then you'd probably just fire it manually. That's what I would do. I'd be watching the jumper and I'd go pop, pop, instead of trying to calculate, it takes exactly 1.238 seconds for you to jump through the air, and therefore I will calculate half of that, and then have to say, you know, you jumped an 1/18 of a second too long, do it again. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Okay. Technopilot, it doesn't drop down to the 1/256 output in the options to match the Pro line, does it? I do not know. To the power, no, 1/128th is the lowest power on this. If you want less power, you can use one of these. Or allow for 1/10 power increments. It does not do 1/10 power increments at all either. It is what is it? Oh no, they are 1/10. Yeah, they're 1/10. See, look. So, I'm in the high speed. I think I'm in the high speed mode now. So now it's in tenths. Let's go back to custom function. Let's go back to, that was supposed to be off. Let's get out of speed mode and back into manual. And now, oh no, it was 10th as well. See, it's always 10th. It's always 10th, Technopilot. It's funny because where I'm looking at it, I can't see that part of the screen. So I knew it was changing as I'm rotating it, but I couldn't see it. So anyway, it's a 10th. So there you go. Let's see here. Anything else? That's it. I feel like we've lost the comments here. Oh, no, you're still there. Okay, Technopilot, just wanted to be sure. There you go. Okay, cool. Short comment section today. Shark, did I hear you right? A pair of bollocks? Unlucky name for that Godox light. A pair of bollocks? What? That'd be a strange name for light. I didn't say a pair of... Oh, a parabolic. You're... Sorry. A little slow today. Wow. Okay, Shark. You're done. Banned for life. No, I'm kidding. Okay. I guess that's it. Not a big chat Q&A kind of a day today. So in that case, we're just going to wrap this thing up. Thanks a bunch for tuning in. Hope you found that interesting and educational. For those who, well, everybody watching now, you saw the opening thing. It was just a slide. I actually shot, it's the first time I've ever done this. I actually shot original content as an opening segment that'll go into the edited piece. Kind of like an animated opening thing, but with actual video footage of it. It's an experiment. I think it's cool. It's one of those things I can't do all the time, but it's kind of fun. I had this extra day, so I decided to play with it a little bit. So there you go. Technopilot, you're very welcome to the details. Shark, you are insane, but I love you anyway. And that's that. Thanks a bunch, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.